Every day, border agents are keeping drugs, crime, and gangs from entering our country. We're going to get that wall built. We've already started it. $1.6 billion. We're getting the wall built.
That was President Trump on the border wall. He says new construction's underway. Tomi Lahren headed down to the Arizona border near Tucson and Nogales to investigate what's going on.
See the gentleman walking there sitting under a tree? Yep. That's what we call a scout. So what he's doing is he's looking for Border Patrol agents. His job also is to watch the cameras. And when he sees camera movement, if he did send someone across the border, there's a good chance he's going to call them back because he's like, they see you, come on back, we'll try again later. If he doesn't see camera movement, he might send them.
So if he's trying to send people over, he mentioned this is a tall fence, obviously not easily scalable. How would he send people over here?
So some of their methods they try to use, they've had homemade ladders. They've had baling wire that they'll hook on the fence, or they have the shoe might be wide enough where they can kind of shimmy up the top of it and slide down the back side of it, just kind of like sliding down a pole. All we have is this 5-strand drop fence. And as we walk down, you can see it's pretty flimsy.
Yeah.
And we have vehicle barrier here to handle the vehicles. So obviously the pedestrian issue is not addressed, but this is in case they try to drive through a vehicle. Usually vehicles out here to drive through are full of drugs.
This area right now, this is our border protected by this barbed wire fencing and, you know, wood. Would this area be suitable for fencing if you could afford fencing to put here?
This area is suitable, and wherever there's vehicle barrier, is a potential for them to drive through, which means there's access on the north side. So just the way the terrain's set up, it's viable to construct border fencing in this area.
Joining me now, Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren. Tomi, nice job down there on the border. That looked like a pretty interesting experience for you. Was it tough getting down there for you? I mean, it must have taken a while. I went down there kind of the same area in Arizona, and it took hours.
Well, I have to extend a giant thank you to the Border Patrol in that area. They were so generous and so kind to us, and they took us over the whole area. They showed us the different fencing that they have, the areas where they have no fencing at all. They really gave us a great tour, and I learned a lot.
Can you believe that one fence that you were looking at, it's just a stake of wood with tiny little barbed wire? I mean, anybody can just boop and go right through.
Jesse, I'm from South Dakota, and I come from a ranching family, and we have fencing to keep cattle and horses in that's better than the fencing that we have on the border to protect our country. This was literally barbed wire and twigs. That's what we have protecting our border in some areas, especially in Arizona. Not acceptable.
And how long did that little twig and barbed wire fence run for?
See, there's certain areas, it's funny because I saw about 4 different types of fencing there. Some of it was an actual wall that looked like it was, you know, probably sufficient. And then other areas, it was just vehicle barriers. It was railroad ties that were just meant to stop vehicles, but clearly a human being could jump over them. So that just means that our agents have to be out there in scorching heat, patrolling that area, monitoring that area. They have to allocate a lot of resources to that. If we had a wall, then they could focus on the areas where we aren't able to put a wall, and where our country would be a whole lot safer.
That's right, and you wouldn't have to separate families at the border because, you know what? They wouldn't come across because there's a wall. And speaking of wall and the border, liberal Democrats want to abolish ICE. At this point, 20 congressional Democratic candidates and other elected officials want to do away with ICE. Listen to this.
I think we need to abolish ICE. That seems really clear.
I'm actually one of the first candidates in the country to come out in favor of the abolishment of ICE.
I think there's no question that we've got to critically re-examine ICE. We need to probably think about starting from scratch.
Oh my God. I mean, just, you know, I love it. Democrats, you know, they don't want the border wall. They don't want zero tolerance. Now they don't want ICE. They should just admit they're for open borders at this point.
I give them more credit if they would do so, but I hope that Americans are listening to this because the Democrats are actually campaigning on an agenda that is anti-law enforcement and is anti-border security and border enforcement. That's what the Democrats want for the American people. They want us exposed to drugs, to crime, to illegal immigrants. That's what the Democrats want. Americans, wake up. Midterms are coming. This is what you need to vote for.
I mean, without borders, you can't even have the World Cup, Tomi. It's just, you know, all one country. No one wins. I gotta run. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Still ahead.